Welcome back to Newsviews. I'm Tanya Babich. My guests this morning are Elizabeth Irvin. She is Senior Transportation Planner, and Liz Shue, Principal Policy Analyst with the Chicago Metropolitan Agency for Planning. Let's get back to what could be with autonomous vehicles. I'm not getting a commitment from either one of you that we're going to be the Jetsons in 20 or 30 years. But what is possible as far as transit goes, for example?
Well, we know that in the Chicago region, really the transit system is the backbone of how people get around and really helps us have the vibrant downtown that we have today. And so we know we need to preserve that going forward. And some of these technologies could help make the transit system even more competitive as we go out into the future. New technologies that could help on some of those last mile segments or in places that are just really hard for transit agencies to serve because there are not as many people or they're less dense. But we also know that, if a lot of people want to drive their own autonomous vehicle into downtown, they could really have a big impact on congestion. And so as a planning agency, we're thinking a lot about how do we make sure that we preserve the sort of road space for transit to make sure that those commutes can be smooth and reliable.
So it's almost like a hybrid system. And can you elaborate for people who aren't familiar what this last mile concept means? How might you use both transit and an autonomous vehicle?
Right. So if your destination is farther from a transit stop, then you might really want to walk, or it's raining outside or it's cold. You might want to take something that can get you that last mile. In some cases, that's a bicycle, but in some cases that might be a shared vehicle or an autonomous shuttle.
And what would roads and highways look like, in order to accommodate? We have transit to worry about, autonomous vehicles, and people who just don't want to give up their conventional cars. Because this won't all change over at once.
You're exactly right. It won't all change over at once. And there are a lot of different ways that this could go. Very far in the future, if we do have a lot of autonomous vehicles, our roads could actually be a little bit narrower because as people, while we all do our best, people make errors when they're driving, whereas autonomous vehicles could allow us to fit more vehicles and bikes and people in the same road space that we have today. But in the interim, we'll have to be careful to allow space for everyone to transition.
And what about the question of safety? Because, we've seen some tragic accidents involving autonomous vehicles, but we're told, by a majority of people that they are going to make the roads safer. How do we know that that's actually true?
Well, we know that the vast majority of crashes that happen today are caused by human error. And so technology, as it evolves, can really help us make driving more predictable, make people better at recognizing, pedestrians and cyclists in the road network. But we really know that there's a long way to go, and that's going to be the job of both the technology companies and the federal government to really set those right standards in place to make sure that these cars are safe on our roads.
One of the cool potential developments that I've read about in my research here is with parking garages. They're such a pain to navigate through. And with autonomous vehicles, and automating the whole process, you might not have to.
Right. So you might not need as many parking garages. One thing that we often talk about when we talk about autonomous vehicles is not as many people may own their own car, right? If you can just hop in a shuttle that'll take you wherever you need to go, we might not need as many parking garages because of that. And also we might be able to fit more cars in the parking garages that we have. So the plan actually makes recommendations for our communities to think about, as we build parking garages, to build them to be something else in the future.
Where do people live? If we're automating transit, does that concentrate people into urban centers because, it's a little easier to get around, or does it cause us to sprawl out even more?
I think it's possible to see a little bit of both. And this is where we get back to the point that you raised at the very beginning about really making sure this technology works for us. And because you could see people, being more okay with really long commutes if they don't have to pay attention to the road the whole way, and the need to, build more infrastructure to manage that kind of those long distance commutes, and can we really afford that? And on the other hand, you could see people deciding to move downtown, deciding that if they can get a shared car to take them where they need to go when they need to, they can live in more walkable downtown areas.
All right, great. Liz and Elizabeth, thank you so much. That does it for Newsviews. Thank you for joining us. For more information about the 2050 plan, the public comment period, and how you can submit your feedback, go to our website, abc7chicago.com. I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. Let's go back to the news desk now. Hey, if you like that video, be sure to subscribe to our ABC7 Chicago YouTube channel.